Okay, let's talk about something that drives pretty much anyone living in a big city completely crazy. You see all this new construction, right? Sprawling out into the suburbs, popping up everywhere. And yet, this city center, still just stubbornly, frustratingly expensive. So why isn't all that new housing making any kind of dent?
I mean, it's a paradox you've probably seen with your own eyes, right? There are endless new developments on the horizon, but try finding a place downtown. The prices are just astronomical. It really feels like it shouldn't work this way. So what is really going on here?
And hey, the numbers, they tell a really stark story. So get this. Between 1990 and 2018, rents in the city center shot up by 45%. At the exact same time, over 80%, 80 of all new housing was being built out in the suburbs. It's like we've been building in one place while the price crisis was exploding somewhere else entirely. And that disconnect, that's the real heart of the problem.
Well, the answer to this whole puzzle, it goes a lot deeper than just supply and demand. We actually have to follow the dominoes. See, there's this hidden chain reaction that kicks off every single time a new home is built. And if you follow that chain, it tells you exactly who benefits and, more importantly, who gets left behind.
So to track that ripple effect, we have to get familiar with this really cool concept called vacancy chains. Seriously, you can think of it like a forensic tool for the housing market. It lets us trace the exact impact of one single new building. So what is it? Put really simply, a vacancy chain is just the series of moves that happens after one new house or apartment gets built. It's that whole cascade of openings that follows.
The best way to think about it is like a giant game of musical chairs, but for housing. So, Step 1, a new home is built. Step 2, a family moves in and boom, their old place is now vacant. That's the first empty chair. Then, Step 3, another family moves into that vacancy, and on it goes. But the really big questions are, where do these chairs actually open up? And how many people get to sit down before the music stops?
Okay, so armed with this idea of vacancy chains, researchers could finally track that ripple effect. They literally followed the moves, household by household, to see where the benefits of new housing actually end up.
And what they did was pretty clever. They looked at two totally different kinds of new housing. On one hand, you've got your high-end, high-rise apartments right in the city. And on the other, you've got your new single-family homes out in the suburbs. The whole point was to see if building in these different places sets off a different kind of chain reaction.
Okay, so these charts might look a little complicated at first, but they show something really simple and important. Basically, no matter if you build a luxury high-rise or a suburban house, look where the first move happens. It's almost always a higher-income household that moves into that new spot. This means that right from the jump, the people who benefit first from new construction are already pretty well off.
Let's break that down with some hard numbers, because this is wild. When a new luxury high-rise opens up in the city, a whopping 71% of the first homes that get freed up are in the wealthiest parts of town. For a new suburban home, it's still 40%. The message here is crystal clear. It doesn't matter what kind of market rate housing you build, the immediate benefit goes straight to people who are already doing just fine.
All right, so the first move helps out wealthier folks, but, the argument is that it'll eventually trickle down, right? The benefits will spread out over time. Well, this is where the research delivered its biggest shock.
Yeah, forget that whole idea of a slow trickle-down effect that takes years. The research found the exact opposite. The ripple effect isn't a trickle, it's more like a flash flood. The huge majority of all the moves that are sparked by a new home, they happen within the first year. It's a really quick burst, not some kind of slow burn.
And here's the other shoe dropping. Not only is the ripple fast, it's also incredibly short. This chart shows it all. A staggering 90% of these vacancy chains just stop after only 3 moves, or sometimes even fewer. The dominoes just don't travel very far. That game of musical chairs we talked about? It's over almost before it even starts.
So let's just connect the dots here. The chains start in high-income areas, and they stop after just a couple of quick moves. The conclusion is kind of unavoidable, isn't it? The ripple effect from new housing just evaporates, long before it ever has a chance to reach the lower-income neighborhoods that need that relief the most.
Which brings us right back to our original question. What does all this mean? Why doesn't all that building in the suburbs do anything to help the city center become more affordable?
Well, the answer really boils down to this one single, incredibly tiny number.
This number says it all.
For every new home built out in the suburbs, it creates only 0.015 moves in a low-income, dense urban neighborhood. To put that in perspective, you would have to build nearly 70 new homes in the suburbs just to cause one single person to move in a low-income city neighborhood. The effect isn't just small, it's practically zero.
Okay, so building out in the suburbs is pretty much useless for this problem. But what about building those fancy new towers right in the city?
Well, the impact is better, but the inefficiency is still just shocking. The research shows you need to build 50, that's 50, new high-end apartments just to free up one single unit in a low-income part of that same city. 50 to 1. As a strategy for solving the affordability crisis, that is just incredibly inefficient.
So, if this long-reaching ripple effect is basically a myth, where do we go from here? Let's quickly recap the biggest takeaways from all this.
First, and this is the big one, the whole just build anywhere strategy, it just doesn't work for making cities more affordable. Second, the benefits of new housing are super local. They're concentrated right around where the new building goes up. And that means, third, that suburban expansion has almost no effect on the lives of low-income people in the city. The ripple just doesn't travel that far.
And all this research leaves us with a really critical question, doesn't it? If the ripple effect is too weak to make it from the suburbs to the city, or from the luxury market down to the affordable one, then just chanting build, build, build clearly isn't enough. It really forces us to ask a much tougher question: what kind of targeted policies and what specific kinds of construction will actually help the people and the places that need it most?